Mr. Poogie Bell in the car to Berlin vom Dresden Drum Festival. Auf drumtrainer.online, meine Damen und Herren. Welcome, Mr. Bell. How are you?
I'm fine. You can turn left now.
I will.
I'm with Dirk in the car going to the airport, and he's interviewing me.
So I
tried.
tried.
This is a moving interview. Literally.
So you played in Dresden again last night. How was it?
It was awesome. I had a marvelous time.
It's an awesome festival.
Yeah. Tias does a great job.
Well, he did give us wrong directions for the ride back. 30 minutes, but that was a lack of communication, as you said. But let's not talk about that.
No.
Let's talk about you.
Hey,
Original.
Can we turn the heat down?
Of course we can.
Okay.
We can do anything.
Okay. Awesome.
Let's talk about you. You're original from Pittsburgh,
Pennsylvania, but I grew up in New York City, and I moved back to Pittsburgh 2001.
Right, but you went to school, all that in New York?
Oh yeah, all my upbringing was in Manhattan on the west side of the city. Yeah.
So this is where your whole music education started. So how did you start out anyway? So give us the whole story.
My father had a band, and
what did he play?
he's a piano player. Kind of like the Martin Jazz Quartet. Anyway, the story goes, I was 16 months old, 18 months old, something like that. And they rehearsed at the house all the time, so I would always sit and stare at the drummer. And one day after rehearsal, my mom woke up like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning to the sound of drums. And she was like, well, what, the drummer's name was Alan Flammer, so what is Alan doing in my house? And somehow I managed to get myself up on the drum stool, and I was going ting, tick, ting,
4 o'clock in the morning.
And so, yeah. And my mother screamed, woke up the whole house. And, he plays drums. So I've been playing drums, made my quote-unquote debut with my dad. I was 2 years, 6 months playing. So I've been, for as long as anybody's calling me Poogie, I've been playing the drums. I've been doing it for a long time.
Awesome. And did you have any lessons then, or
there was a thing in New York City called Jazzmobile. So at Jazzmobile, you had the great drummer Freddie Waits and Charlie Percept and Michael Carvin, played with Freddie Hubbard, Motown drummer. So I went there when I was 13, 14, something like that. And I took some lessons with Michael outside of the school program. It was a Saturday program.
So that was in the 70s then?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This is like late 70s, 76, 77, somewhere around 76, 75, something like that. And then after that, I befriended, there was a store in New York called the Modern Drum Shop, and it was run by a guy named Joe Apolito, I think that was his name. So Jim Chapin taught there.
All right.
And Papa Joe Jones taught there, but I didn't get to work with him. But I did get to study with Jim Chapin a little bit. He was an amazing guy.
Yes.
But there I met Dennis Davis, who at the time was playing with David Bowie. And it turns out that we were neighbors, and so I'd go by Dennis's house. So me, Sterling Campbell, all lived in the same area. Zachary Alford lived around the corner from me. Phoenix Rivera, the great Latin drummer, he lived.
Which area was that in New York?
This is Manhattan.
Oh, in Manhattan, right.
Yeah, Manhattan. So I was on 93rd Street. Zachary Alford was on 92nd Street. Sterling Campbell was on like 106th Street and Broadway. So anyway, we would all get together and hang out, and we'd go to Dennis house and we would play. So I was really lucky to be able to be around so many great musicians in New York and be able to take everything in.
So what was it back then? Your influence then mostly jazz or also some R&B music?
Well, I come from a jazz home, so
Right.
the majority of the time, my father was friends with so many different people. So Ron Carter was a very good family friend. Paul Chambers lived 1 block away from me. I lived on between Columbus and Central Park West. Paul Chambers lived on between Amsterdam and Broadway. And so him and my pop were thick as thieves. So Paul was always at the house. Archie Shepp. Who else? Ornette Coleman, Donardo Coleman. So these were people who I saw in my living room. Mary Lou Williams was a good friend of my father. Dan Flock tried to get out the car. And so you had to know how to swing to be in my house.
Right.
But of course, James Brown and Parliament Funkadelic. I used to drive my father crazy, so I was a big P-Funk fan.
Right.
And I would play One Nation Under a Groove over and over and over again. One day he came, I was practicing playing, and I can't listen to that 4 chords anymore. You gotta stop. So to appease my pop, then I would put on Charlie Parker and practice to that. But yeah, so
when you practiced to Charlie Parker, would you check out like exactly what the drummer did, or would you just jam along and play your own thing?
I would. Ever since I was a small boy, I would always try to play exactly what the drummer played. Always. So, and if I had a song that I really liked, I would just practice that song over and over and over and over again. So when I was very small, 5, 6, I used to practice the Take 5 over and over and over again.
Right.
I wore out several copies of one track. And then the first time I heard Herbie Hancock's Chameleon,
Right.
and I heard the sound of the bass, I remember a kid played it for me. This is in the 70s, right? A kid played that song for me out on the basketball court. It's the first time I heard Chameleon. I immediately ran to the store and bought the song, or bought the album.
That was Harvey Mason on drums, wasn't it?
Right.
Right.
And the same thing. I would play the Chameleon every day, over and over and over and over and over again. It used to drive my neighbors crazy, I'm sure. And so Harvey Mason ended up being a real big influence on me. And I told Harvey when I finally got to, I'm good friends with him now, but I told Harvey, I said, man, when I would go to the record store, if I didn't see your name on the back of a record, I didn't buy it. And he looked at me, Poogie, you're crazy. I said, no, I'm dead serious. And I said, I didn't care who the artist was. If I saw your name, I bought the record. Because that's how much his drumming,
Of course.
influence.
Watching Mr. Magic, that was him,
Oh, yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I'm trying to remember. I think that's Steve.
On Mr. Magic?
That's Harvey?
I think it's Harvey, right. I checked that out.
Okay.
But I'm very sure it's
I thought
Harvey.
it was Steve. Anyway, but Harvey was a huge, major influence on me. Nice guy too.
So I think Harvey Mason is a very well-trained drummer. I think he studied music. He could even play everything. So did you go to college then?
I got a full ride to go to a school called Long Island University.
All right.
And during that time, I was working with Hugh Masekela. Right, and then sometimes with Mary McKeeba.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She was living in New York?
Well, Hugh was, yeah.
Like Miriam Makeba, she was.
Yeah. Well, the couple tours we did, we went back and we played the so-called independent countries at the time in South Africa.
Right.
So she came and sang on that, and sometimes she would do a gig, But
so was that a lot of Afrobeat too then, like what they call like Hootie style
his
with
music
her?
was lime in the coconut, all that stuff. And his music was very reminiscent of Dollar Brand, type of vibe. So, but that was fun.
So you did that besides college?
Well, yeah. I had been playing around between him and Tom Brown, right, trumpet player, and he calls me early in the morning before I'm getting ready to go to school, right? I'm still living at home with my dad, right? And he says, my brother, if you can be to JFK Airport in the next 45 minutes, I will be going to St. Croix, Guadeloupe, and he starts naming everything with like Saint, right? And my father's watching me have this conversation, right? And my dad says, tell him to hold on for a second. I said, okay, yeah, you hold on, right? My dad says to me, look, man, you got a choice. You can either go to school or you can take this gig. But if you take the gig, you're out of the house.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, my father, he was
But he was a musician himself.
Yeah, he was a hardcore dude. Right? But he was an educator. He was also a college professor, right? And I thought for a second, right? And I looked at my dad, I said, well, hey, man, you know what? It's been nice. I got to go. So
so what age was that?
I packed it. This is like 18, 19, yeah, something like that. First year college age, 19, 18, 19.
You were out of the house.
I was gone. And then the adventure began. So the keyboard player, Donald Blackman, was Hugh's keyboard player.
Right.
And I got Victor Bailey, his first gig in New York. Victor Bailey was playing bass, and that was the band. And awesome. Renee McLean, and anyway, so we go to wherever, the Guadeloupe and all that shit, right? We play the gig, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. I ain't got no place to live, right? So Donald Blackman said, hey man, you come move in with me, right? So I moved into Donald's house. Okay, Donald lived in the projects, the 40 projects in South Jamaica, right? And
Jamaica Queens.
Jamaica Queens, right? So I'm a kid from the Upper West Side, the middle class background. I had never lived in a hardcore, place. And so we come back from the airport. I go to Donald's. I'm like, oh shit, now what, right? And I'm living there for a while, and we're jamming at 2 or 3 in the morning in his house. Nobody says nothing, that sort of thing. And I'm coming back from gigs with my drums and everything. The lights are all out in the lobby, and the elevator doesn't work, and it's like, oh shit, So I stayed there for a while, and then I ended up moving to, where did I go from Donald's? I moved back into my dad's house for a hot minute.
How come?
So, because I had to get out of Donald's house, because he was a great musician, but it was crazy. So I moved back into the back of my father's apartment. He had a huge apartment in Manhattan. And me and Victor Bailey lived in these 2 back rooms at my dad's place for a while. And we're still playing with Hugh and doing whatever gigs we could do. And then my father finally got mad at Victor about something. He kicked Victor out the house. So Victor moved in around the corner with a great jazz guitar player named Bobby Broom. So Bobby Broom's parents had left him the apartment. So Bobby was sharing the apartment with Marcus Miller. So Victor moved into that apartment.
All right.
Victor lived there for a little while, and then he got the gig with Weather Report, and that was that. But by the time he was 19, he was working with Joe and Wayne.
So Salvador.
Yeah. So, So I don't ever think about this shit. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, so college didn't work out.
Make a long story short.
College didn't work out.
Well, that's great, but you could support yourself, like you could make a living on just playing the drums band.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, I had to. So
you just mentioned that that's how you met Marcus Miller.
Oh well, I met Marcus. I was in a band. We we played at, there was a performing arts school called Music and Art, and they had a spring concert. So me, Bobby Broom, and a great keyboard player named Terry Burris played in a band called Tranquility, which is really a bad name for a band. Don't ever name your band Tranquility, that sucks. Anyway, at the end of the gig, this guy comes up to me, and his name was Weldon Irvine. And he says, well, you know, first words out of his mouth was, you know, I wrote Young, Gifted, and Black for Nina Simone. So that caught your attention, right? And then he said, you know, some of my students are Letty White and Billy Cobham and Steve Gadd, Chris Parker. And I went, oh, shit, really? Right? And he said, yeah, so I'm doing this play. And we need kids who can play but also act in this play. So I'm like, yeah, sure, you know. So he hired me, hired Bobby, and he hired Terry to be this kid band in his play. So we go out there and, you know, we read, you know, the whole thing, and they say, you know, whatever. So, but the first day of rehearsal, he said, yeah, this bass player, this is Marcus Miller. I went, hey, man, how you doing, right? So Marcus, you know, is like a big borough thing. So if you're from Manhattan, or if you were from Queens, or if you were from Brooklyn, or you're from the Bronx, each part of the city had a sound, right? And the guys in Queens were really good, right? So Marcus said his first impression when he looked at all of us was like, oh, they can't play, right? And then we sat down and started playing, and he was like, oh snap, they can play, you know? And so that began our association. So I've known Marcus since I was 15 and he was 17, something like that. And we started playing together every day at this play. And the play it was an off-Broadway play, but it became a hit, you know. And we did the same show for almost 2.5 years.
And you also had to do acting in that, or? Hmm? You also had to act in that.
Oh yeah, I acted as a, you know, my role was to be a kid musician in a kid band that gets ripped off by this manager, was what the story was. And then we played, and it was a musical, obviously. So, and we played in the pit band for the play. So that began my association with, you know, Marcus, and then that's where I met Donald Blackman, actually, you know, Bernard Wright, Denzel Miller, and a whole list of so many great musicians that came from Queens.
And when did the real Marcus Miller band start? Was that like?
Oh, he put out a record. His very, very, very first record. I can't remember what the name of it is, but he was going to do a gig and tour behind that record, and then that didn't happen. And then he called, hey Poogie, go in the studio. You know, I got blah 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 blah. So that record turned out to be Sun Don't Lie, I think it's called. And then after that record, then we started, you know, that band kind of started. We went to Japan and we played outside, and that was kind of sort of the beginning. So it was
like early mid 80s.
Yeah, no, it's like 90 and 91. Really? Yeah, you know, because he was playing with, you know, Miles had come back, so he was playing with Miles and all that stuff, and he left Miles' band to start, you know, to play, you know, to do his own thing. And he said Miles was so cool. He said that Miles, he told Miles, I want to go play and start my own band, you know. Miles said, all right, well look, you know, I'll book my shows around your schedule, right? And Marcus said, well man, I can't ask you to do that. He said, you know, no problem, you know. So he did that for a little while, but then it stopped, and we focused on his band. And then that band kind of started from there, you know. And so the first tour we Layla Hathaway and Joe Sample, God bless him. Joe Sample was on the gig. And Philippe Sace was the keyboard player then. I got Dean Brown in that band. He was the original guitar player. I kind of got him fired by accident, and he never forgave me. Yeah, it was Anthony something. I can't remember his last name. He was a motherfucker. He really could play, but he would play all this shit, and then his guitar would be out of tune. You know, but like Hendrix, and he's trying to tune back up and shit. You know, and he never got back in tune. And I don't have perfect pitch, but I have very good relative pitch, so the shit used to drive me crazy. So we at rehearsal, about a third day of this motherfucker kept playing a badass solo, but then being out of tune when he played a chord, and I stopped the band. I said, look, I know I've been playing a lot of, doing a lot of R&B shit. I was like, maybe this is a jazz thing. I was like, but man, you're always the fuck out of tune, right? And as soon as I said that, it was like a cartoon. 5 hands like took out a tuner and handed it to him, you know. And so the next day he was gone.
Poor guy.
Yeah, and Dean Brown was there, and Philippe Sace was like, man, you gotta get this guy Dean Brown, right? And then so we're playing, and Dean plays his badass solo, and his guitar is in tune. I stopped the band again, and right, Dean said, he looked at me like, uh-oh, right? I said, man, it's good to have a guitar player in the band, and, yeah, that was awesome. But anyway, yeah, so that's like 1991, 92, whatever.
You toured massively with Marcus Miller, didn't you? It was like...
for years, like...
there's so many recordings over here, like I saw some stuff from Leverkusen Jazz Tage and all that.
Yeah.
So you still play with them today? Or?
No. When that ran its natural course,
right.
And it's really funny, what happened? How come you're not playing with Marcus anymore? It's like, well, because I wanted to do something else, and he wanted to do something else. But no, what happened? What's the problem? It's like, there's no problem.
Right.
And it's funny, because we talk all the time, and I'll call him to check on him, he calls me to check on me. So in November, he's playing in Philadelphia, and my son, who's 16, right, plays saxophone.
Right.
So we're going to drive down to Philly so he can go sit in with Marcus. So everything goes full circle.
Yep. I mean, that's how we got to know you over here, I think, was through Marcus. That was
yeah. I'm very grateful for the fact that I spent so much time in that band, and I got to play so much of Europe because it's allowed me to come back and work with my own band.
Right. And people always, there's this hard hitter with Marcus Miller, so he loved that to bash the shit out of the drums.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah, the band was loud.
And then the Erykah Badu phase, was that right after? Or
it was in the middle. In the middle.
Right.
Yeah, I was in London, and the guy who ended up being a musical director for Erykah, his name is Norman Hurt. He called me. He was like, "Hey man, can you come down to SIR? He said, I'm working with this guy named D'Angelo." I went, "Oh, that brown sugar guy, right?" He said, "Yeah." I went, "Oh man, I'm in London. I can't make it." "Okay, well, there might be something else going on. I'll get back to you." Right? And then a short while after that, "Hey man, come down to SIR. Got a rehearsal." I said, "All right, what is it?" He said, "Oh, this girl named Erykah. You're really gonna like the music." I went, "Okay." So I go down there, and we start playing, and I was like, wow, so it's kind of like jazzy hip-hop music.
Right.
There's a little black girl who's pretty, but she sings like Billie Holiday, but doesn't know who the hell Billie Holiday is.
She didn't know about her?
Oh no, she had no clue.
She was from Texas, from Dallas.
But no clue. And so I thought to myself, well, we were rehearsing for a showcase for Universal Records, right? And I was like, well, this music is cool. It's really jazzy. It's not really going on right now. This will be the rehearsals and the showcase, and this is going to end, right? And we go play the showcase, and the president of Universal and blah, 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 all those people were there. And when we finished the song, rim shot or whatever.
Right.
And then the president of the company got up and started clapping, right? So of course everybody else, when they see the president stand up, they get up and start clapping. And I went, oh shit, no kidding, really? And then it turned into 2.5 years of a gig, you know? And you know, it was like my last R&B hoorah, big stage, tour bus, all that kind of stuff.
But the original, the Rimshot, the record, that was programmed, wasn't it?
All that.
Right.
Yeah, all
I remember that.
By a bad producer in Dallas, where I don't know where his name is, Badu. He created that sound that's on that record.
Everyone sampled that Rimshot.
Oh yeah.
You couldn't turn on the radio
all
that Rimshot.
Well, it was an ARS-10, an Sonic thing, something. Yeah, it was a sample of a sample.
So, and when you played that live, you played that Rimshot?
Oh yeah.
Or did you
the
use
sound
any
man.
samples?
No. I had a pad that had an 808 sound,
right?
And it was not a good 808 sound. But everything, all the rest of that stuff was just me. And then the sound man who ended up, his name is Gordon. I can't think of Gordon's last name, but he ended up working with Prince. But he would turn the rim shot up. It sounded like I was hitting a baseball, like playing baseball. It was so loud, you know. And I had people, what snare drum was that? What kind of snare drum was that? What was like? It's a Yamaha snare drum. It's not a big fucking deal. It's just turned up really fucking loud, you know. Yeah. But yeah, that was fun. And
so would you use on live situations? Would you use 2 snare drums then? So one?
No.
What was the same?
All of it was the same. I was a very, very Afrocentric kid to go with the music.
Yeah.
So a Jelly Bean, red, black, and green, and yellow snare drum. And the Yamaha was very gracious to make for me. Yeah. And but yeah, this little tiny kit like I played last night. You know, I think a 10 and a 14 and a 20 and a 7.5 by 14 snare drum. So yeah, but I used that on Tyrone and all that shit. Back in those days, people had money, so you could actually take your drum set with you.
Yeah. Good old days.
The good old days of budgets.
I know.
So,
and so did you play with D'Angelo then afterwards?
No, I didn't get a chance to play with him after that. After that, he started playing with my buddy Amir from Philly,
right.
And he really loved the way Amir played, so that was the end of that, you know. But I know him, he's a nice guy. Nice guy.
Yeah,
and I love the way Amir plays, you know. It's a very, very unique thing that he does.
And I think there were supposed to be 2 shows in Berlin. They both got cancelled, and I think Chris Daddy Dave was supposed to play on that.
Chris Daddy Dave?
But they cancelled both shows. Like one in February, and the next one was somewhere in June or July. No, I also cancelled that. But that's another story. So, talking Erykah, Marcus Miller.
Well, after Erykah, then I started working with Roberta Flack.
All right.
And that was probably one of the most learning. They call it going to the University of Flack. You know, because she demands that you play whisper soft, but with the same intensity as if you're playing full volume. And a lot of drummers have the tendency when they play very soft, and especially if they're playing a ballad, they start dragging.
Right.
You know. So you couldn't fuck up the time because the time was perfect, and so that was, and you know, to play all those hits, and so that was good. And she was real old school, you know, and people, like I said, mess with her money and stuff. So when you walked on stage, Roberta handed you a check as you walked on stage, you know, and this was her thing, you know. And I would say, you know, Miss Flack, right? Because I never called her Roberta, right? Miss Flack, you don't have to pay me. Yes, I do. Take your check. Take your money. It's like, okay, But I learned a lot working in that band, and she did a lot of interstate gigs. Like there's a famous dance company in Chicago, which is like a black dance company, like Alvin Ailey is in New York. We did a bunch of shows with them. They choreographed to her her music in San Francisco Symphony Orchestra, this symphony orchestra, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of fun gigs. So one and only time I got to meet Ray Charles, in fact, was playing with Roberta Flack, and he played somewhere at this thing called Westbury Music Fair. I don't know if it exists anymore. And Ray Charles, or Mr. Charles rather, was standing, waiting in the wings to walk down this hill to go to the stage, and I was like, well, shit, it's Ray Charles, to say anything, this is going to be your time to say it. So I built up the nerve to go say something, and I was like, hello, Mr. Charles, I just want to say how much I love you and I appreciate you. I'm a young musician, and blah, blah, blah. He said, oh, nice to meet you. And then he asked me a question that still has me fucked up to this day, and I don't know why he asked me this, but he said, young man, every style of music has a soul. And I went, yes, sir, Mr. Charles. Yes, it does, Mr. Charles. And then he said, but the question is, young man, can you surrender your soul to that music? And then they walked him away. And I was stood there like, what the fuck just happened? Like, oh, shit. That was a poignant moment. That was a poignant moment. I got to meet Bo Diddley the same way. Bo Diddley was standing out in front of the hotel. We played the Pori Jazz Fest. He's standing out in front of the hotel, and Bernard Wright was in Marcus's band. And we look at each other like, oh shit, it's Bo Diddley. We gotta say something, right? So we go over. Said, hello, Mr. Diddley. He's talking to him, and he said, Mr. Diddley, where'd you get the beat? He said, well, when I was a young boy, I'd go around the church, and that's what the sanctified women would play on the tambourine. So that's what that is. That's the sanctified beat. And I said, whoa. And then he just started talking to us and giving us all his history and stuff, And moral of the story, if you get to talk to famous musicians, you have an opportunity. Don't let us pass through your fingertips, Go say hi. You might learn something,
So you said you played with big orchestras with Roberta Flack.
Yeah.
So was it hard to play with the conductor, or were you used to that?
Oh no, I just ignored him. I didn't pay him any fucking attention. He was like doing, right? I was like, hey, look, I'm keeping the time. You have to follow me. You don't know this music, I do. So I just ignored the motherfucker, and I pissed off the musical director so bad. She had this guy named Sheldon Beckton, who was her musical director. He's like, man, you gotta look at the conductor. I was like, fuck him. He don't know this shit. I ain't paying him no mind. He gonna pick the wrong fucking tempo. I said, you got people reading the music like robots. We gotta have some feeling up in here.
Yeah.
And I remember, a couple of times, the conductor, oh, thank you so much, for playing the right tempo and, the whole thing. So, kind of a little arrogant, but,
But I think you're right. I'm so thankful that you say that.
Yeah.
I had a hard time with the conductor.
We're playing with the conductor? Yeah.
He wanted me to follow him, and I told him the same thing. I won't follow you.
I'm going to follow you.
So, Roberta Flack, and what else? Like, you play a lot. Did you play a lot in clubs in New York when you were?
Oh yeah. That was normal,
Right.
And I was fortunate that I got to play in a time when there were places to play. And in my neighborhood, there were two very famous clubs. There was one called The Cellar, so that was like the R&B club, and there was another one called McKell's, and that was like the jazz club. And The Cellar was on 94th Street, and McKell's was on 96th Street. I lived on 93rd Street. right? So it was easy to get to work, and so I lived in both of these clubs, you know. So, you know, at McKell's, you might find yourself on stage with Olu Dara and you know, or Hugh Masekela or whomever. You know, Art Blakey played in there all the time. You know, Roy Haynes played in there all the time. You know, the band Stuff that had Steve Gadd and Chris Parker and Cornell Dupree and Eric Gale. They lived in there. They played there all the time, right? So that was like that club. And at the Cellar, though, so you had people like Johnny Kemp and Kashif and all the people who were New York R&B starlets hung out and played at this place. You know, like the Commodores would come through there, and Shaka Khan would come in there. And, you know, so a lot of times I would split sets. I'd play a set at the R&B club when they were on a break. Then I'd run down the street and play at the jazz club, and so they had a break, and then I'd go back, play the second set at the, you know what I mean? Right. You know, it you know, sometimes it worked out okay, sometimes it didn't work out so that pissed somebody off. But, you know, so I go back and forth, and then after that, then you go uptown and play in Harlem. So, you know, places like the Press Club and Frank's Loft. So there you play for, like, you know, street folks, for the hustlers and so forth and so on. So the first set there wouldn't start till, like, you know, 3 in the morning, you know, 4 in the morning, something like that. So I play for those guys who were really, really very, very good tippers if you played, like, the song they liked, right? Oh, man, that was great. Here, take $500. I'm like, yes, sir. Thank you so much. Right? And so I play there and then go to school and sleep through the first period of the day. And so I'd leave the club, take my drums home, and then run to school. So that was like the high school years. But yeah, all the time, man. You know, all sorts of gigs. You know, or like when Wynton Marsalis first came to New York and all those guys started coming. Wynton played with my uncle. His name is Mickey Bass, great bass player. So in that band you had Steve Nelson on vibes and Bobby Watson on alto. I played drums. Wynton sometimes played trumpet, or Terrence Blanchard sometimes played trumpet. And you know, we go around and that's like when disco was dying. So then discos would actually have jazz nights, which I thought was really weird. And so yeah, all sorts of, you know, kind of gigs with all sorts of kind of musicians, you know. Yeah.
You just said it, like working late hours and late at night.
Yeah.
How was it for you, like raising a family? You just said you have a son, you have more kids?
Not that I know of.
but like
no. I have one son, and it's fun to watch his development. You know, so when he was, he came to, when I did it at the end of my thing with Marcus, we played in Pittsburgh. My son at the time was 5 or 6. He came to the show, right? You know, he'd been to other shows with Marcus, but he was too young to understand, right? But now he was like, wow, you know. So I go to the music store a couple days after that, and my son sees this little red Fender Bronco bass. It looks like a Fender jazz bass. And he looks at me like, Dad, right? I'm like, look, man, I'll buy you the bass. But I said, if I buy you the bass, you have to learn how to play it, right? So buy the bass. I take him home. I explain the basics about, you know, the notes, this, that, and the other. And school starts soon. He walks into the school, walks up to the music teacher and says, hey, I want to be in the band. I play bass. I said, you don't play bass. What are you doing? You had a bass for 2 weeks. Oh, yeah, I'll be fine, right? So he starts playing bass at the school, at his elementary school. They had a program where the kids would play early in the morning, right? So it was fun to watch him, you know, go in and try to struggle through these little rock and roll tunes on his bass, right? Anyway, there's Duquesne Music's in Pittsburgh, good music school, right? And they had a summer music program. And he said, oh, Dad, I want to go. I go, okay, cool. And I look on the paper, I said, well, man, they don't have electric bass. He said, no? I went, nope. He said, what they got? I said, well, they got violin and cello. And the look on his face was like, oh, hell no. I'm not playing violin. I'm not playing cello. And then out of clear blue, he says, hey, do they have saxophone? I went, yeah. He said, okay, I'll play sax. Right? So he goes there. It's a 10-day course. By the end of the 10 days, he actually is making a sound on the saxophone. Right? Same thing. I get him a little saxophone, right? Rent one from the store, right? Goes to school, tells the music teacher, hey, I play saxophone. And the teacher asks him, do you have a sax? Yeah, I got a sax at home. It's like, oh, great. Right? The Christmas show is coming. I went, you did it again? He said, well, yeah. I mean, how hard can it be? So he comes home with the jingle bells and all the Christmas music. It's like, and you know, when squeaking and squawking, but when he makes a sound, the sound is nice. So I got him a teacher, a guy named Eric Lawrence, a jazz guy from New York. And 6 years now he's been playing. And he has a band called Funky Fly Project. They're working all over Pittsburgh, Ohio Valley. We just got back from playing North Carolina. They opened for Kenny G and Bob James and Dave Haas and all these different people. But when you hear him play, you would think he'd been playing the saxophone for like a long time. But he's only been playing for 6 years. So, but it's fun. It's fun to watch his growth and development. And this fall, he's going to be studying with Gary Bartz at Oberlin Conservatory. So, you know, I keep telling him, it's like, look, you know, if you're enjoying yourself, keep playing. Don't play because I play. You know, if you're enjoying yourself, play. You know, but I think that you know, I took him with me up to Berkeley. I did a thing up there. Omar asked me. Omar is the drum chair now at Berkeley, and I went up there and did this groove thing and played with the kids.
Omar Hakim.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And my son came, and you know, he hung with all the college kids. You know, and you know, I think a lot of them were kind of like, you know, were kind of surprised that, you know, it's like, wow, this kid can play. So it's interesting. It's interesting to watch.
Very cool. So it just brought me to that. You mentioned Bob James, Dave Haas.
Yeah.
You have your own. You had your own smooth jazz project, didn't you? Like you would.
Me?
You write your records? I read that.
Oh,
song.
my. No. Well, I mean, before they called it smooth jazz,
right.
there were a lot of those guys. There's this guy, a piano player, it's a Swiss guy named Alex Bugnon. So I produced maybe 6 of his records, and you know, I've done a lot of those gigs. Jeff Lorber and
right.
Najee, and you know, a lot of those, you know, saxophone players and a lot of that stuff. And you know, it's instrumental, it's R&B without a singer.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool. You know, another way to make a paycheck.
And but you also produce your own music. You put out your own records.
Yeah.
So you write? Do you play piano or something?
I play at piano. I play at bass. But I play enough to be able to convey to a guy who can play what it is, you know, and or you know, the basic chords and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, having spent so much time, you know, hanging around studios in New York, as opposed to like the majority of musicians, you know, when it was break time, you know, they'd go smoke weed or do whatever. You know, I asked the engineer questions, I asked the producer questions, and why'd you do that? You know, why did you use that reverb? Why did you, you know, and then, you know, started keeping in mental notes, and then, you know, and spending so much time around Marcus and all the productions and stuff he did, and you know, and because a lot of people don't realize a lot of the productions that he did early on. So he did the thing at home, and he would take it to the artist and say, "Hey, you know, check this out." And then if they dug it, they put it on the record. You know, so you know, I did a lot the same kind of things. You know, I figure out a way to make some kind of demo and take it to the people and. But for myself, you know, when I started my band, I had to have a CD, you know. But my first CD is pretty fucking awful, right? Because it goes all over the place. I didn't have a direction. But I knew I had to have a CD if I was going to have promoters take me seriously,
right.
You know. And so now, this record now that's coming out will be my 6th record as a solo artists, and it's very, very rewarding.
Right. Which record company is that?
I just signed with this company called Jazzline. So it was a German dude named Joachim Becker.
Right.
So Joachim, put out Zavanu Syndicate, the WDR, Maceo Parker, Larry Graham, Michael Walden, Victor Bailey, Bill Evans, Randy Brecker, Steps Ahead, Hiram Bullock's records. He put out, he's a real record guy, and he just started a new label.
So he's in Cologne, or was he?
Yeah. He's in Cologne, exactly. He's with WDR.
Right, and you played with the WDR.
Yo, the hardest gig I've ever done in my life.
You said that yesterday, so it was a lot of reading, was it?
The hardest fucking gig I've ever done in my life. And those guys are such, it's like a Mercedes Benz. It's like this machine,
Yeah, it's a great
The first
band.
time I played, the sound of the band was so huge it actually scared me. I was like, fuck. I knew they were going to be good, but these guys are really fucking good,
Right.
And it wasn't fair what they did to me, right? Maceo Parker made this record where he played his Maceo music, right? Like the James Brown stuff.
Right.
But the other half was the Ray Charles music, right? So they had Dennis Chambers, my buddy had Dennis Chambers play the funk stuff, right?
Right.
And then they had the WDR drummer play all that big band shit, right? When I got there, I had to do both. Right?
Because Dennis can't read, Johnny.
I don't know. I don't know.
How is your reading?
My reading is so-so. I read enough to get by.
But they have fly shit on those pages, don't they?
They have they put the charts for the Ray Charles shit was. They were just like 3 music stands, just like went on for fucking forever. So, I made notes for myself and, remember this figure, remember that figure, At first, when I first started, I was going to try to memorize all of it, right? But it was just too many hits, too many things. So I had to sit there and go, count this, count that, and write this, this accent, blah, 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 Lenny White said, Poogie, that big band shit is easy. To really say, yeah, they play 5 fucking rhythms. They're going to play them every time. And he was almost right.
Yeah.
He was almost right. So, but it was hard. It was hard. Some of the gigs was really good, Played the North Sea Jazz Festival was really good. But man, a couple of nights, I had some car wrecks where there were like just dead people everywhere. I wrecked the fucking bus bad, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I was like, oh shit, that was fucked up. Wow. Hope there's some survivors. Call the ambulance. Just dead people bleeding everywhere. Fucking drummer fucked up, But Joachim is a cool dude. He's a cool dude, and so my buddy Bobby Broom worked out a deal or helped him get signed to the label. And my other buddy, Bobby Sparks, worked out a deal for him. He's going to have a record coming out on a label. They signed my good friend from Dayton, Ohio, Larry Trumpman, Roger and Zap. So his brother, he's putting out a record on that label because it's the jazz side and the R&B and funk side of the company. And Larry's record is good. He got Bruno Mars on his record. Yeah. So Joachim has a nice little setup,
So, I saw a little bit of your workshop yesterday. I couldn't watch everything, but I like the advice you gave. So, if you would, like just 3 sentences, like an advice to some young drummer who wants to make it, some young musician, what would you say? If you could boil it down to 3.
Listen to all the music you can, and if you're a drummer, if your neighbors don't hate you, you don't practice enough. You need to play more. Everybody in your neighborhood should want to kill you as you play the drums all the time.
Right.
I would just say, work, listen. But more importantly, know how to listen. It's easy to figure out what somebody played on the record, figure out why they played it. That's the key. That's the key. You know?
Is it a spiritual thing for you, like playing the drums? Are you a believer, religious?
I'll put it to you this way. In my neighborhood, I was a middle class kid, but there was some rotten kids in my neighborhood. I hung out with everybody. On the east side, I hung out with some real rich people, and then some of the toughest hoods in New York, you know, South Bronx, and just, you know, like Brownsville, where Mike Tyson came from. And because I wanted experience, right? But drums always was my safety system, my safety net. So I was hanging out with some guys like, hey man, we're thinking about going to, you know, rob this store or, you know, do something crazy, right? I would look at them and say, you know, I have to go home and practice my drums. I can't go, right? And they're like, oh, you just, well, look, whenever we about to go do something, you never want to go. You always going to say you want to play your fucking drums. It's like, well, yeah, pretty much, right? And but years later, when I see some of these people, right, grown men, they all say to me, wow, man, you know, when we were kids and we were doing dirty, I wish I would have had something you had like that. You know, I wish I would have had music in my life or something in my life, you know, to have kept me away from doing, you know, those things, you know. So, yeah, the drums have been my solitude, my, you know, harbor for safety, you know, things, you know, music and my drums, you know. Some of the first apartments I ever had on my own, all I had was a mattress, my record player, and my drum set, you know, a couple pans, you know. I lived that way for years, you know. So, yes, it's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing.
So, thank you so much, Mr. Bell.
Yes.
Have a safe trip home.
Thank you for not crashing while we talk.
So, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Hope to see you on tour.
Yeah. I will see you again. So you want me to turn it off?
Drumtrainer.online, meine Damen und Herren. Check den Poogie Bell aus. When is your record coming out?
Oh, my record's coming out September 28th. All over Europe and Asia and the world. So
we will post that on all our channels.
Yes.
Tschüsschen.